Okay, we're recording. This is the first time we're trying the Green Knights at a round table instead of Knights of the Round Table, and it's kind of a little social media interaction we thought of while we were still on full quarantine. But tonight we'll kind of reminisce a little bit about the 2007-08 national championship season. Of course, the first one for St. Norbert won in Lake Placid on Easter Sunday, 2008. So we got some guests involved from that season. And at this time, we'll kind of take go around the horn, everybody introduce themselves to everybody, and before we get into the discussion of the season. Whoever wants to start.
I guess I'll go ahead first. It's Marc Belanger. In 2008, I was a senior forward. Currently, I reside in Green Bay. I'm an accountant with Clifton Larson Allen. Still playing hockey a little bit with the local De Pere Deacons, but kind of hung them up, what was it, about 5 years ago officially.
Jonesy, go ahead.
Yeah, Kyle Jones. I was a senior as well in 2008, goaltender. Mark and I were the two seniors that year. Went on to play another 7 years after St. Norbert. Now I'm in Chicago working at a company called Zurich North America downtown, underwriter for Zurich Insurance Company.
Scotty?
Scott Pulak, 2008. I was a freshman forward. Graduated in 2011 and decided to end my career there after winning that championship. Currently live down in Chicago and work as a senior operations manager at Coyote Logistics with fellow hockey alum George Malarius and also 2011 basketball alum Rob Durrett.
Nice. I'm Ryan Petersen. In 2008, I was a junior forward and then graduated in 2009, obviously. Have stayed in hockey for that time since 2009. I've coached in a lot of different spots, including St. Norbert. And now currently reside in De Pere with my wife, Sam, and kids, Aubrey and Everett. And I'm currently an assistant coach with the Green Bay Gamblers.
My name is Russ Schmelzer. I was the head athletic trainer in 2008. I was in my 27th of 37 years there before I retired in 2017. I currently live in De Pere with my wife Molly and daughter Ella. And in retirement, I do a lot of reading, which is no different than I was when I was not retired. And I'm also doing a lot of housework and yard work and all that kind of stuff, trying to keep the rabbits from eating all our plants. Basically living the good life in retirement.
Well, guys, AJ Aitken here. In 2008, I was assistant coach at that time. I was my fifth year with the program. Currently, I obviously in De Pere with the St. Norbert women's hockey program. 3 kids now. My daughter Liza, who's 15. My son at the time was born in 2007 in December. He's 12 now. And then my youngest daughter Hattie, who's 8 years old now. All play hockey, all very active, and my wife Rachel, who has a business in town as well. So.
All right, well, I'm Tim Coghlin, and I'm still here. So all of you that are out there that are watching this who have other opinions, but I'm certainly grateful and appreciative for Dan to put this together and for all of you to partake tonight. I think this is a fantastic thing that we can do for our future in terms of putting things down on paper. And what I would say is that's where you are today. I'm going to back up, and I'm going to say, where were you? How did you get to St. Norbert? And I'll start with that by saying, our captain on the 2008 national championship team. And by the way, there's a black lab under my desk, as there always is in the office. There's always a dog under my desk. So Cooper is under my desk as we speak right now from home. So that just keeps things more the same. Ryan Petersen was our captain on the 2008 team, and before attending St. Norbert, he played in the USHL for Sioux City and Green Bay. He was the captain of the Green Bay Gamblers. What makes that kind of unique today is the USHL has just, and that's where PD works now, has just taken off. It's mind-blowing to see. We don't get USHL kids anymore. We did during that time, and we got the captain of the Green Bay Gamblers to attend St. Norbert College. He was our captain on the 2008 and then the 2009 team. The A team obviously won it all, and it's just interesting to look back at where guys were at. Kyle Jones probably shouldn't have played at St. Norbert College. He was an elite goaltender, was injured before the playoff run in the BC Junior Hockey League. Kyle's a Division I player, as evidenced by his 7-year pro career, by his National Player of the Year, by the back-to-back shutouts in the Frozen Four. Marc Belanger is a Division I player, shouldn't have probably played at St. Norbert College, scored 37 goals in Penticton in the BC Hockey League. He got to us through no fault of his own, an elite All-American player. Very fortunate to have had Marc within the program. Scott Pulak, on the other hand, he's the kid that the night was not to be. I've known the Pulak family, known Scotty since he was tiny, born. And we didn't pull the trigger on him to bring Scott in, and he ends up scoring the game-winning goal in the national championship, which I just think is a cool story all by itself. A beloved young man, high academic kid, committed to Lake Forest because I didn't have a spot for him. And then, interestingly enough, in the summer of 07, we had an elite skill position player, Jeff Hazelwood, teammate of Petey's from the Gamblers, decided July he's not coming back. And I called Tony Fritz, hockey coach at Lake Forest, who's a dear friend. And I said, boy, Scotty Pulak always wanted to be at St. Norbert. Any chance you want to let him come back? And so Scotty was kind of the night not to be. And then he walks out the door with not only a business degree and an accounting degree and, so well for himself academically, but he has 2 national championships, as he said. We also won in 2011. Even AJ Aitken was one of those guys who was not supposed to be here. I recruited AJ out of juniors. He was in the Alberta Junior League, and I actually met with his father in Kelowna. We meet with families and we meet with parents a lot because when kids make decisions to come to places like ours, usually it's a full family decision. And I met with AJ's dad. He went back to play his 20-year-old season. He blew up the Alberta Junior League, had an unbelievable season. I think he led the league in scoring. Michigan Tech comes in, and Michigan Tech is where he ends up playing his college hockey. And he ends up being a captain on that team. But guess where he comes when he needs a job? He comes back to us at college. Rusty, the only thing I'll say about Rusty is Rusty's the governor. So when I arrived, I knew early Russ was in charge and runs the show, and we just kept it like that. Anytime I had to figure something out, I ran it through the governor. Rusty, thank you for being here tonight.
You got it.
All right. We'll just kind of walk through the regular season a little bit. Of course, for those watching or who don't remember, but I think most do, this team finished 27-1-4. And the one loss came in the 3rd game of the year. Gustavus beat St. Norbert 4-2 with an empty net goal at the Cornerstone. So did kind of taking that loss, I guess, on anybody's memories, and just kind of chime in on without getting a loss that early at home to a team you look back on you probably should have beaten. How did that kind of set the stage for how the rest of the year progressed?
I think for the players, and obviously coaches will have a different opinion at that time. But we had, as Kyle already mentioned, we had 2 seniors on that group, and we had 3 juniors on that team, along with Steve Sloop and John Skoog. And those 5 guys knew there was going to be some kind of bumps along the way. And because the vast majority of those underclassmen were playing such big roles for us, we knew we may have taken one in the teeth. And we happened to take one in the teeth against a team that maybe on paper shouldn't have been. But you have to remember they also played in the Frozen Four in the national championship game that year later. So it was a good opponent. And it really made us all kind of be able to take a step back, recognize guys needed to step up. We needed to come together and become the group that ended up not giving up a loss the rest of the way out, which I think is remarkable for that group, and such a small group for older guys and such a big group as younger guys to be able to go do what we did.
And my personal recollection there is that, I mean, it helped me quite a bit. That game was kind of a set the tone for the year, where I took a really dumb penalty in the third period, and Cogs let me know that it was dumb by sitting me for the rest of the period, even though we had a 5-minute power play, and it didn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you're a senior leading scorer, it didn't matter anything. And that kind of set the tone. I mean, we had a lot of underclassmen, and they saw that, and I think it was just, it's all business. Can't make mistakes. So that was selfish mistake. So I deserved it.
I mean, I think it turned out to be a wake up call, not only for us, 5, upperclassmen leaders on the team, but for the young guys as well. At home to a team we're not supposed to lose to does not happen and should not happen. And when it did happen, it was almost like one of those things that it was kind of a blessing in disguise, just because it was that wake up call that made us realize that this wasn't going to be easy, and we got to be that much better the next time around. So as bad as it was at the time, I think that it was something that we all needed to experience together.
Yeah, and I'll finish it. I always remember that game because I was sitting up in the bleachers as a scratch. My one healthy scratch for the year. So I don't know, maybe tie that together. But no, but I think the same points there. It was an awakening for me personally too, and just how competitive our team was that year, where the battles that we all just faced internally just to get a spot in the lineup. A wake up call for me as a young freshman that you have to bring it every day to to be in the lineup at all.
Yeah, I'll just add to that too. I mean, I just I remember going to that season. I think coming off of the the championship weekend, I guess against Superior last year, and having a young group, we were just trying to figure out what we had, and I think like Marc said, I think having taken that loss at that time, and we learned lots really quick, and I think coach making that statement really quick about like you said, the penalty there, and I just remember we just kept bumping along after that, and just winning really close games along the way, learning how to win those close games, and it kind of turned out to be our MO down the stretch. And obviously, I just remember the senior leadership that we had in Jonesy right from the beginning, and Marc setting the tone for the young guys. I think off the ice was just major. I think Kyle and the seniors and the juniors, just the off ice commitment that year, and getting on the bikes after and pushing guys, and really gelling that group together. And I remember that game against Gustavus. They were a pretty good group, and it was definitely a great series. Even against that, I'm looking at the schedule. That St. Olaf game was really intense as well. I don't know if someone went on the bench that game. Someone got hit in the bench in that game, but I remember that series very well.
What I would say is 27-1-4 is ridiculous. It's just like, it doesn't happen. It doesn't, I understand Stevens Point a year ago had their miraculous season. 27-1-4 is ridiculous. It says a lot about all the guys involved. And it starts, in this case, with a goaltender who's a 9.5 save and a 1.09 goals against, and back-to-back shutouts in the Frozen Four. And those are the only games that we talk about, but it's all the games in between. And Banger hit on it when he was talking about, being the leading scoring player, which he was. He's an All-American forward. He's got an elite shot. That shows in the big games too. The leadership of PD and his crew, and the competitive nature. So a season like that is just, it's one of those that it's nice at this stage of our lives to be able to reflect back on, because you can't see it when you're in the middle of it.
The thing that I remember about that regular season the most was the overtime games. I think we had 4 ties, but we also won 4 games in overtime, I think we had 8 overtime games. And I always remember Tim and the coaching staff talking about how much that's going to prepare us for the postseason, because we're, the teams out east are winning games 7-0 and 10-2 against lesser opponents, and we're in 8 overtime games. So I think that's the thing that sticks out about that regular season to me.
Well, it's a great segue, Russ. I had on my list, of course, the Oswego trip, a win over Curry, and then down 1-0 after 2 to Amherst, and came back and won 3-1 to win the Pathfinder tournament. And then 2 weeks after that, as Russ mentioned, 2 overtime wins at home against St. Mary's and St. Thomas. Both overtime game winners scored by Matt Boyd, and it was the first time in school history that St. Norbert won 2 overtime games in the same weekend. So anything about that kind of, again, just kind of building momentum toward the postseason about a month out at that time?
I'll start with that. I mean, I remember that vividly because Ian was born on December 21st, and I know we were getting ready to, obviously after Christmas, head out there, and I've been talking to Tim and the staff, and he's obviously you better stay home, and I never made that trip to the Pathfinder. What I remember is we recruited a player right at the break there. It was Brandon Longley, and I tell you, I went to watch him at Deacons skates, and we kind of caught wind of Brandon, looking to play college hockey, and he might go to Stout. And obviously, Tommy Shimfloni was on staff as well, and he kind of caught wind. And I remember we were recruiting him, and I think he made that trip, right, guys? And he jumped on the bus and made that trip. I think he played the first game, and he might have scored a couple goals.
And
then all of a sudden, I think Tim Bald says, "I don't think this kid can play. I don't think he's allowed to play." And I think we had to put on the shelf after that. But until classes start,
that's exactly what happened.
But I mean, what a great addition that came at that point in time. And I know I missed that tournament, but I heard obviously making trips like that was really great for the guys at that time.
Interesting note there is that we win the Pathfinder. We wanted to play Oswego. Why? It was just Oswego in 2007. We lost in overtime up in Superior. Oswego beats us, and then they play Middlebury, and they win the national championship, Superior. So we want a piece of Oswego. So we go to the Pathfinder the next year, and Eddie Gozik's a dear friend, and it's a great setup, and we're thankful to be there. And they lose their first game, so we don't get to see them in the finals. But the other interesting thing about the Pathfinder was when Jeff Hazelwood chose not to come back in July that year, where did he transfer to? Curry College. So who did he play right away? Curry College. And it was interesting because, whether guys take it in their own or they don't, who knows. He certainly thought we were taking it too seriously. There was nothing there. Hey, buddy, get out the door. Scotty Pulak's in and international championship.
Okay, that kind of brings us forward to postseason. Of course, the 4-3 overtime win for the Peters Cup against Stout. And then that led to the NCAA tournament and the quarterfinal at home against St. Thomas. And of course, that was a 2-1 overtime win. Petey got the game winner, banging it in off the back of, I think, Chestnut's leg for the game winner. But one thing I wanted to mention that kind of gets lost in the last minute of regulation, St. Thomas had heavy pressure. And I remember from the angle where I was standing in the scorer's booth, St. Thomas had a shot through traffic, and Jonesy, I think, was on his side and somehow made the save, which would have been, if it goes in, the season's over. And I just remember how getting to overtime at the end of that game, and then we kind of settled back in. But what do you guys remember about the St. Thomas win? But the last 30 seconds of regulation, I'll never forget. That was pretty tense.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it vividly just for that. I mean, not for all of it, but for all of it, but for that as well, just because, I mean, and especially those last 2 games that we played at home that both went to overtime, I feel like even more so those prepared us for the Final Four. high pressure situations going into, sudden death 2 weekends in a row against 2 really good teams to, one to win it all and one to win all the league and one to go to the Final Four. If you don't have a heart attack through those 2, you're going to be pretty prepared for what comes next. And I think, at least for me personally, it really prepared me for that Final Four even more so. And I honestly think back to the Final Four as well. And I don't think that I had a doubt in my mind that we were going to do it that year. And I think that those two high pressure games in overtime definitely did it.
I think one thing I really remember from both those games, and specifically that St. Thomas game, was just the crowd and the atmosphere of both those games. I think getting close with all the guys the year before in 2007, I remember both nights, like just the rink being packed, and there was just an electricity that I don't recall ever having again after those games. I mean, there were some great crowds after, but those 2 specifically were something that I'll always remember.
I remember wishing that I could have seen the goal. I was down at the other end, and number 2, Petey was like below the goal line, and he was behind everybody from my line of vision, so I never even saw the goal. I wish it could have been a really cool goal, so we could have, at least I could have celebrated. I saw the guys celebrate. I still wasn't sure that went in because I didn't really see it, and Petey being below the goal line. I'm like, how did that happen? So that's the thing that sticks out.
As Cogs kind of mentioned, I didn't have an elite shot like Marc Belanger, so any opportunity to put that thing on net, it was going to happen. And for the fortunate bounce that it worked out, obviously, then we knew we got to go play for an opportunity at the national championship. So
yeah, talk about your celebration there, Petey.
I kind of always had a little like Theo Fleury in my my game, and for whatever reason, my Theo Fleury in me just kind of took over. But I had too much juice coming through the neutral zone, and I really wanted to get back closer to Jonesy and bring us all together. Just because, obviously, as Dan mentioned, with a minute to go in that game, I remember vividly that puck going. He makes the save, and then they got a guy in the back door, and it just goes up over his stick. And without that save, we don't get that opportunity. And for us to be together and be able to celebrate that and know that we're playing one more day, that was the most important thing.
And like the whole season, I mean, we have it on the inside of the ring, and where it says "find a way." That's the way it went the whole season. I mean, overtime, we had the confidence. We knew that somebody was going to get it done. It was contributions from everybody on the team all year. And, as nervous as you should be in those situations, I think that the whole regular season, everything built up to us having that confidence and kind of just knowing that it was going to get done. It was quite the feeling.
Yeah, I remember that game too. I mean, it felt like I know for me and Tim, it was like a little redemption, because I know in 2005 we got stung there, and certainly a team that we thought was gonna make it back to the tournament, and St. Thomas came in and played a fantastic game, and I think Deitch scored twice, went through the mesh, but here we go again. St. Thomas back in our barn, right to go to the Frozen Four, which is obviously the toughest game, I feel, is because once you get to the dance, anything happens, right? And you just wanted to get there. And I know that Petey and that wraparound, I still can remember it to this day, and banking it off the goalie was unbelievable, right? So, and I know we played him to an overtime game, I think, in the middle of the season as well. So we knew it was going to be a tough go for sure.
And I feel like AJ, when you say that those games were the hardest, and I feel like they were too, only because the West had stiff competition, and then we didn't get to play the East teams as much, but they just played us tougher. They played this sort of the same style of game. The games were rough. We had rivalries. It was just really intense, those games to get to the Frozen Four.
Yeah, that was a good stout team as well, hey? I mean, that was a really good stout team.
Yep. Tim, what do you remember about that quarterfinal?
Well, again, this is the coach's angle, as it was with AJ. It's the 2005 team who didn't get through. I mean, there are people out there who probably one of them who would say the 2005 team might have been the best team that's ever played at St. Norbert College. I mean, look at the guys on the back end. Kyle Jones, a freshman goaltender. He hasn't lost a game in his career at St. Norbert until we get beat by St. Thomas in that 2 game. We spot them 3 goals. We're down 3 goals in the second period. Deitch finds a way to score late because Deitch can score, and he's the all-time leading scorer in school history. And then he scores again in the third period to pull it back to 3-2. So there's a lot in our tank that talks about St. Thomas relative to the game that was 2-1. So there's some history there. I mean, now Kyle's a senior, Mark's a senior, Petey's a junior. I mean, you start looking at it, it's like, okay, well, there's a lot there. And St. Thomas was a really, really good team. They beat us in what AJ and I probably would say, because we came off the 2004 national championship game with Middlebury 0-0. And we graduated a big class, 4 defensemen, 5 defensemen, 10 players overall. And we went back to work with a bunch of young guys. And the young guys, including Kyle Jones, they all got it done. Like we were in a position where had we got back in 05 to play Middlebury in the championship, we thought that would have been the way. We obviously saw them in 6 in the national championship game, lost to Oswego in 07, and then now we're talking about the 8 run. But nothing lives in its own space. It's always got backdrop.
Okay, and that sent everyone off to Lake Placid. I think that was the first time any of us had ever been out there. And it was the first time Lake Placid had hosted the Division III championship. I know it had hosted Division I once for sure, maybe twice. But the excitement of going to the Olympic Center, of course, a very historic place. But just a few things. I made some notes before we talk about the 2 games. It was just the trip out there and the day before. And I remember for those that remember Midwest Airlines, we had one of their planes on the charter out to Saranac Lake with the first class seats and the cookies and the whole deal before Midwest went under. But I remember just basically riding out there in comfort, having a charter ride out into a remote place. I think helped us a ton because we had an 1.5-hour plane ride and then about a 20-25 minute drive from the airport to Lake Placid. And then those of us that were on the bobsled run, which I'm sure AJ, Russ, Tim, and I will talk about a little bit, and then staying at the Olympic Training Center. So it's kind of all those unique experiences before we even played a game. And I'll kind of give my thoughts on the bobsled run too when we get to it. But just kind of your thoughts on just the trip out there and the run up to the 2 games.
I'll start this one. What I would say is it starts earlier than that because we know we're going to Lake Placid. The Cornerstone Community Center has just added rink 3. So we now have an Olympic sheet, even though there's no glass up in rink 3. We're able to practice on the sheet. So we're going to big ice for the first time. We don't play on big ice as a rule. And that was a big thing. Can the Western teams come out and compete in the Eastern style of hockey on the sheet? And we talked a lot about that. We practiced on the Olympic sheet at the Cornerstone. And we were gearing up. We took over one of our halls because we were on spring break. We took over one of the halls on campus, and we played the movie Miracle for the guys. We sat down in one of the theater seating places. We watched because we wanted to see what Lake Placid looked like because truly we'd never been there. And I thought that was just whatever. It was an interesting part of the experience to kind of prep yourself for what happens next. We were getting the runaround from Shorts Travel, the NCAA, as we always do at that time of the year because they're flying basketball teams and they're doing all kinds of Division III hockey teams aren't on their priority list. So we kept thinking we were leaving earlier than we were. And we wanted to conclude our 3-on-3 tournament on Wednesday. We wanted to play the 3-on-3 tournament at Lake Placid and make it because the 3-on-3 tournament was a big deal for us. And we were told that the plane was going to be late. We weren't going to get to Lake Placid in time to practice and all the rest. So we played it at home. The intensity on the ice for a 45-minute skate was edgy. Like, honestly, AJ and I thought, holy smokes, somebody's going to die out here today.
By the way,
Well, I'd like to add to that, Tim.
So my line mates, Scotty Pulak and Taylor Langford.
Yeah.
Taylor Langford absolutely was running people in the 3-on-3 tournament. And so much he ran up, he ended up getting off the ice before practice was done because he was so worked up.
Well, yeah, and then PD, Steven Sleep came in, got in with Taylor, and and I was sitting there like trying to break up this almost fight, and I came in the coach's office like, Tim, these guys are wound tight, boy. I mean, Scotty and Taylor going at it, and then Steven Sleep threw Langford down. And, I don't know, was that PD? Did you do the pie in the face that year on the tele?
We got that was the pie in the face that year too.
Sleeper and Langford were like, they're two of the toughest amigos we've ever had in our program. I thought they were, when Sleeper jumped in to settle Langford down, Langford knew his place because he's a man-child, and he looked at the bench where he could get out of the ring because he knew if he didn't vacate practice right now, he would kill somebody. So he just stormed off the ice. He went straight into the locker room, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is good or bad. I'm not sure.
I think he carried over that into the first game, though, because if everyone remembers, I think first shift of the game, maybe second, ran or just a Norwich guy in the corner. I don't know if the guy played again the rest of the game, but he took it and blue line in, just crushed a guy down in the corner.
I think, Scotty, that's a great comment because I felt going in against Norwich, man, you don't know how you feel, but I think when Taylor went down there and crushed, one of their top defensemen and he went crippled to the bench, I just remember I looked at Tim, I said, you know what, we're here to, compete. And, it was game on from there, and just our physical play and the way we played. I just that was a really defining moment for me, anyways. Knowing that this is it. Let's get it going, boys.
Yeah, before we talk more about that hit, I do want to make sure we touch on the bobsled ride with the staff. Tim reminded me today of who the two bobsled runs were, but I just remember finishing. And I remember, kind of being a bigger guy and high blood pressure going through those turns and getting done with that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm glad that didn't go any longer. But it was a blast. But I remember Cogs jumped out of the bobsled and high-fived the driver and said, that was awesome. And I remember I said to Tim DeRozier, I think, I said, you know what? I said, I think we just won the national championship. Because just to me, that ride – it just kind of showed how the atmosphere, it wasn't loose, but it was, and I don't know what word to find to describe it. But just relaxed is like, we're here, we're going to play, we're going to do well, and we're going to win this thing. It was just like, it was a business trip, but it wasn't, life and death. It was like, we're here and we're just going to play our game and we're going to be just fine.
The interesting thing to me is, so the Wednesday was to blow up on the ice at the Cornerstone. Then we land at Saranac Lake. All the people in the building at Saranac Lake Airport come out because they've never seen an airplane this big land because we're on a charter. It's a Midwest charter. And the ground crew knows we can get down, but they don't know if this plane will ever get out again because of the length of the runway. So we're kind of chuckling about that until the bus shows up. And so the bus company that chartered through with the NCAA shows up. There's a disco ball. There's music speakers. I mean, it truly is a stag type of bus. And that's the bus that rolled us into Dodge. And all of these quirky, weird little experiences were like, oh yeah, we're good. Like this is good. This is cool. This is us. This is how we roll. And checking into the OTC and getting organized that night, and the guys getting their lanyards and their tags, and you're looking around at where world-class athletes train and the food that they eat, and now it's a dormitory type setting at the OTC. It's not the Ritz-Carlton, but it was one of those things that all of us embraced at a very easy opportunity. And then the guys did their thing. And then that Wednesday night, and this is a staff thing, the players won't necessarily know this, The players went out to eat at a place called Adirondack Steak and Seafood, and it was good, very good. And then they all bugged out and went back to the OTC, and we stuck around. And Rusty and I think Doc Wakowitz, who flew back from a Caribbean, he was on a cruise ship or he was on a sailboat in the Caribbean, and he flew back up to meet us in Lake Placid. AJ and Dan and Rusty and we Chase and Tommy, we stayed for a couple of cocktails at the Adirondack Steakhouse. And all of a sudden we look up and we glance over to our left, and there's a guy. He goes over to the lobster tank and he pulls a live lobster out, and he walks up to some guy sitting at the bar and he throws the lobster on the guy's back. We watched a guy get bit by a lobster, and we're like, what the heck is going on here? This is on Wednesday night. So I think Dr. Wakowitz was the first one with a smartphone in our world, and they're looking this whole, and the kid's an Olympian. He's a gold medal skeleton guy, Jimmy O'Shea. His dad was an Olympian. His grandfather's an Olympian. That all happens on Wednesday before anything gets going on Thursday. Rusty, what do you remember about the Adirondack Steakhouse?
Well, I always remember the food. Everything there was outstanding. You know, the food is always the main thing for me. But I'm going to go back even further for my recollection. My first thoughts of Lake Placid were personal. I'm going to go back to 2004, because in 2004, the NCAA for the first time said, beginning in 2006, we're going to go to predetermined sites. And starting in 2006, the predetermined sites were in order: Elmira, Superior, and Lake Placid. So in 2004, I'm thinking, well, I could care less about Elmira. I could care less, even lesser about Superior, because we go there every year. But I want to be in Lake Placid. And I'm thinking this in 2004, like, Lake Placid is on my mind, because I don't think the four players were probably even born in 1980, right? When the Olympic team played. And I remember watching that game on tape delay in the press box at the Schulte Sports Center when I was a junior in college, or February 80 I was a junior in college at St. Norbert. So I really had a spot in my heart for Lake Placid, not only seeing that game all the time, the Olympic tournament, but just thinking about going there in 4 years, hopefully. And as it turned out really well for us. So that's my first thoughts of Lake Placid. But getting to the immediate thing, you know, the restaurant and the food and the drink and the camaraderie and the stories that you can see and tell. Those are things not only from Lake Placid, but from every time we took a road trip. Those are the things that I treasure and remember the most.
Yeah, the whole trip was something absolutely special. I mean, a lot of times going to the Frozen Four, you know, you can have a lot of nerves when you're young or when you're a senior, and just the way we were treated, the charter, like you said, Tim, the party bus, and then if you were lucky enough to be on Tommy's, you know, it just shakes the rust off. You can sort of be loose. You forget about all the nerves that you have until the day of the game. So it doesn't fester in you. You kind of enjoy it. And I thought and I think the word maybe that Dan was looking for earlier was we had an air of confidence in us. Just what we knew that we were there for business. We had been through games like that all year. And I think we just had this confidence that, you know, we couldn't shake us.
Yeah, and I think the confidence that year, I mean, I think we were very prepared. I think, you know, the coaching staff had us prepared, but all the players had themselves prepared too. Like, we knew what was at stake and made sure everyone put in the work to do it. And when you do that, you just go in with so much more confidence that you know you can get the job done.
All right. Well, I guess we'll kind of get to the meat here. The appetizer's over. The first game was the Friday first semifinal against Norwich. And I'll kind of go through some notes and you guys can take it from here. AJ brought up the Langford hit. Like I said, I think it was on the second shift of the game, and I was up in the upper level in the press area. And so I'm up there. If you have never been up there, you're looking straight down at the sheet. Well, so you got a great look at everything. And Lange had this guy squared up in the corner. And when he hit it, and, you know, it wasn't full, so things kind of echo, but it sounded like someone had detonated a small cannon when he hit the guy. And like you said, he kind of, you know, gingerly skated back to the bench. And that led to 2 quick goals for a 2-0 lead. Tyler Allen at 3:05, Steven Sleep at 9:25. And then midway through the second, I made note Kyle had a big save on Nikita Kashersky that kept it at 2-0. And then a little bit, not much longer after that, Norwich took a tripping penalty and Matt Boyd scored a power play goal to go up 3-0. So it could have been 2-1. Now it goes 3-0. Norwich had 4 power play chances in the third, didn't score, and St. Norbert wins that one 3-0. So I'll let you guys take over the Norwich game.
I want to back up for a second because I'm still on Thursday before we get to Friday, because these guys may remember AJ will, Russ will. So what happens on Thursday at the Frozen Four is it's the National Player of the Year banquet, the All-American banquet. The awards come out that night. The 4 teams all come to one space, and you stand there, you get a bite to eat. So remember, we're playing the early game. We play the 2:30 game. 4 teams. We're in one banquet hall, all 4 teams. The East eats first. The East eats second. The East eats third. It's 9:00 at night on Thursday, and we're playing a 2:30 game there. And our team goes to eat, and they run out of food. There's no protein left. There's no roast beef left. That's going to be an issue for us because we are playing the 2:30 game. The temperature in that room just went up about 1,000 degrees because our guys don't get to eat. The other thing that reminds me about the Thursday night banquet is we as head coaches all get electronic ballots for National Player of the Year. And here are the 8 ballots for National Player of the Year. So this comes out on Wednesday, and I do my voting. And you're allowed to vote for your own player. So, of course, I vote Kyle Jones number 1. Mike McCain at Norwich, who's our opponent on Friday, he selects Kyle Jones number 8. Dead last, because he's the biggest threat to Nikita Kashersky, who he's got on the ballot. So he puts him 8. But being an old guy, McShane's older than I am, he goes reply all. So on Wednesday, I get the ballot back. And Kyle Jones is voted dead last. Of course, then he went out and got a shot. And Stone Kashersky on the back door, which Dan was talking about. So the backdrop to some of the stories is just a little more human. And I would tell you, I think one of the reasons the calmness and the collective nature of our group started with Kyle and Matt, because Kyle was the type of goaltender who you couldn't tell if he just gave the goal up or if he just made the game-changing save. You could never tell with him. He was just cool as a cucumber, and that was all part of that too. But the 2 Thursday experiences between the banquet and the National Player of the Year vote, priceless.
God,
Yeah,
What was your reply?
Cogs, didn't you have to end up going back into the kitchen and start serving food?
I tried. It became, trust me, because we've been to enough Frozen Fours, it became a topic of conversation every Frozen Four. So I think if you ever watch that now, what happens is the early participants on Friday go to eat first. The later eat later. I think they nailed that down. I think it started. Yeah.
Yep. I remember we eventually ended up eating some beef in there, but I think it was still mooing when it hit our plate.
Yeah. The other thing that
I had forgotten about that.
I'll verify the other thing which was the bobsled run. So we practiced that day. The guys went back to the OTC, and we, the staff, Tim DeRozier, Russ, Tim Bald, AJ, myself, Chase, Tommy Champlon, we did reserve bobsled run. And so we went up to the hill. And we chose teammates, and it was Chase and I. It was Tim Bald and Dan, and I think it was Timmy D and Russ, and it was AJ and Tommy. And so we reserved the right, Chase and I, to go last. And so we sat on top of the hill, and you're watching the ticker go, you're watching the timer. There's somebody driving your sled, there's somebody pushing your sled, and you're shooting down this. It's phenomenal. And so we took the opportunity, because you got to enjoy all the experiences. The staff took the opportunity to make that happen. So sled one goes, sled 2, sled 3 is AJ, I think, and they have the fastest time down the hill. So Chase, I'm sorry.
I thought no doubt we were going to win this, Tim, because we were the lightest group. Let's say.
Well, certainly any sled I was in wasn't going to win.
We had it, and you guys came through, and you were the fastest time. I was beside myself. I was like,
so Chase Emdot, our strength coach, and I are standing at the top of the hill. And I look over at the guy because everybody's down in the bottom. They can't see what's going on. And I pull out $20. And I said to the guy, hey, get us some more help back here. We need a faster than those guys. The guy's like, don't worry, coach. You will win. And he and we zip down the hill. And the ticker's going. And everybody's watching. And all of a sudden, and I can tell you how I know. There's the picture. That's Chase with our bobsled and our extra guys right there. We win. That was number 1 on the weekend.
Love it.
Yep. And anybody who watches this, I can tell you, if you're ever in Lake Placid and get a chance to do the bobsled run, to do so. It certainly quite an experience at a facility.
And I'd just like to add to, the experience too was, like I said, Tommy brought a lot of positivity, as we all know, right? And right from the party bus and putting on the music right away and jam with the guys into Lake Placid. And then I think the one kid that really, just the way we treat people and was Smiley. I think Smiley was a big factor in a lot of how we treated him and how he's to this day, he's one of those kids that always check in, and he's the guy that was assigned to us and, helped with any skate sharpening, anything that we needed from that end. And there was just so many great moments. And I just remember that kid being so excited to be around our guys, and our guys really, brought him in and treated him with just so much respect. And it was just awesome to see.
Okay, so I kind of set up that Norwich game, but a little bit earlier. But again, just kind of everybody's thoughts on that Norwich game. Start at the hit, the 2 quick goals, and then the big save that kept us up 2, and then kind of put it away later in the second.
Yeah, I remember. The hit for me was one of the things that I think it took so much wind out of their sails and put so much in ours that it was kind of like a game over, basically. But obviously not. But one of those things where it just like the momentum was so far on our side that it was just made you feel so comfortable out there. And to be fair, obviously Norwich was a great team that year. We shut them down. They had a couple opportunities, but I think that starting from that hit and then 2 quick goals right after, I think that we were just so far on the the momentum was so far on our side that we just kind of ran with it, and everybody was just calm and cool and in it.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember as much about the Norwich game that I do from Plattsburgh because we watched that other one a little more, but I do remember, and it's probably a testament to the whole season, but it was the way that everybody bought in, and especially the defensemen. I remember you couldn't even count how many block shots they would do. They would put their bodies in front of everything, and Jonesy would make the save if it ever got through, and it was amazing. Norwich had a high-powered offense, a lot of guys that could shoot the puck really well and score goals, and our guys would just lay down in front of everything. So that's what I remember.
Yeah, I think I'll echo that, Mark, is that I think once we got up 2-0, the way that Kyle played and that our defense played all year, you almost felt like it was enough. Like, we got this from here. If we just keep playing our game, we're going to be fine. I do remember that feeling, at least once we got probably midway through the second, we're like, we're good here if we keep doing our thing.
You got to remember the lines pretty much for the last 2 months, month and a half. We kind of got things locked down. Petey started every game. It was Petey with Pulak and Langford every game. So that's would lead me to believe, and I didn't watch the tape, but that would lead me to believe that hit happened on the second rotation of line changes, because I don't think it happened in the opening shift. I think it happened in the second rotation. And Petey, Pulak, and Langford, that was our group that started every game because they got the momentum going the right way, right away. And then it was Boyd, Wheeler, and Belanger, Allen, Sleep, and Longley, Herman, Overton, and Filing, Nopper and Tebig almost every game, Hammerback and Tika in the next rotation, Bernardi and Skoog and Jonesy in the pipes. And once we solidified that rotation, everybody just knew exactly what to do when they got to the game that night. Whether we're on the bench or not, AJ, those guys already know what's going to happen next. And it was true that we beat Norwich by sort of suffocating them in that Friday game, but we beat them also on the power play. And we scored the power play goal and they did not. And what's going to be true about the championship game is that was a team that was 30% on the power play, and we beat them on the penalty kill. So you never know how you're going to win the national championship. You've got to take whatever comes next. Sometimes it's a goaltender, sometimes it's special teams, but to beat Norwich on the book sheet, to shoot 8-6 in the first period, to have imposed our will physically, to score first, to score the next goal, it all changed the tide for certain.
Yeah, Scotty Poo, you raised a good point. Thinking about that back end and how young they were and how far they came that season. And I just remember like guys like Nopper and Hammerback would just eat so many pucks, they would lay down and sacrifice. And I mean, I know we're not in Plattsburgh yet, but I know Nopper just eating pucks on the one-time shot. And like I said, if they got through, Jonesy was there. And obviously Nick Tabiz was as we all know, is a very special talent. And that kid just continued to just, shine. And, like I said, we played such a solid defensive game. And like you said, Coach, I mean, our special teams just continue to evolve all season. And to win that game and to only score the only power play when these East teams had over 30% on their power plays, we were, when you're riding at 35%, you're going to give something up.
Okay, we'll kind of get to the championship game, and again, some just kind of going over the game. Scoreless first period, and then at 5:53 of the second period, Scott Pulak with the redirect from I think it was a shot from Nick Tabis at the right point, and then 5 minutes later, almost 10:25, Marc had what kind of come to be known as the wicked wrister, one of the best still photos in St. Norbert history, with his wrist shot from just inside the blue line, his 23rd of the year for a 2-0 lead. That was at 10:25 of the second. 13:57 of the second, St. Norbert takes a major penalty and had to kick off the major on a check from behind. And I think there might be a story behind that about our penalty kill going against Plattsburgh's power play and the film work ahead of time on that. And then the last 2.5 minutes, Plattsburgh had an empty net, but really didn't get any good looks as St. Norbert finished off 2-0 win. So I'll let you guys take over from here.
Yeah, I'll jump in here because, as always, I want to back up to the night before. So we beat Aitken in the early game, and then we're allowed to watch the game upcoming. And so Vladdy has Myra. Vladdy wins 6-3, and their power plays at 30%. And they run a 4-high umbrella, which we have not seen all year. They got a one-time over here, a one-time here, single here, and then a one-time back. They've got one-time spots all over with a net front screen, and we have not seen it all year. And AJ's scouting Plattsburgh, and he's watching the game as we're watching it unfold. Now, there's a video exchange that happens. It's mandated at the NCAA level at the tournament, and so we're supposed to, directly after that game, we're supposed to get that video so we can go prepare our guys. And this is an important thing. 10 o'clock at night, We don't have the video. 11 o'clock at night, we don't have the video. 12 o'clock, we're playing a 4 o'clock game the next day. We still don't have the video. And I look at AJ and I said, forget it. I'm done with it. I don't want to put more into a meeting schedule tomorrow. I am done with, and AJ's like, "Ooh, Cog, slow down. Whoa, our guys have to see this. Our penalty killers," and he's in charge of the penalty kill. Our penalty killers, and Petey's one of the top dogs, and Pulak, one of the top dogs. They have to see this in video. So I am wound to the top of my ability, and AJ's pumping the brakes. I think the tape came to us at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and AJ probably worked on it for 2 hours to clip out the pieces that he thought we needed to see. We go into our, this is where Tommy Boy comes in. We go into our meeting at the OTC to a meeting room, and it's where we're going to talk about the lineup and line changes and flip this and flip that, and we're going to show a little video. And probably because I was over the top at that point, guys were more relaxed than I was. And Tommy comes walking in. Russ, do you remember the parachute green and white track suits from back in the day, like from 98? Tommy comes walking in wearing a pristine 1998 St. Norbert tracksuit, crinkle material. I mean, the thing is like, it looks like it came from a spacesuit somewhere. And the boys crack up, and the fellas are laughing, and the meeting room is cool. And in the meantime, AJ steps up and he takes over the PK and he highlights the things that are going to be really important. Because although we won the Norwich game probably on the power play goal the night before, we are definitely going to win the national championship on the penalty kill, which is exactly what happened. And so the whole tape exchange thing before we get to play that game, off the chart.
Yeah, before the boys jump in here, that was a pretty crazy situation with the tape exchange. But I think now, fast forward going into the warm-ups, and I always like to stand on the bench and watch the boys warm up if they need something, maybe a skate or stick or some exchange, and I just felt really ready, and I'm just watching Jonesy go through warm up and the boys, and I come back and it's just, typical banter where, how's warm up look? And I said, well, I tell you, Cogs, I didn't see a goal go in on Jonesy. I swear to God, I didn't see a goal go in, but I did see Marc Belanger snipe one high glove. And I swear to God, banger. And like I said, everyone just looked rock solid. And, right from that moment, I felt, just at ease going into the game against Lake Placid. And sure enough, I mean, Jonesy sat at the door and you make that unbelievable shot. And, but it was warm up that I really look back, and that's a vivid memory. Just us looking ultra prepared.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the preparation that coaches do, obviously when we're all shutting it down and trying to sleep before the biggest games in our lives, guys and coaches and support staff are doing everything that they can do to make sure we're prepared when we wake up. And that's no different with AJ and Coach Coghlin and Tommy being there for us to make sure that we seen it. And then at that point, we can just let our team take over because we've seen it. We don't have to worry about it, and we can use our reaction and be good within our system and our structure. And because we got to see it and be able to feel it and make those slight adjustments, you obviously got to see the results and how we were able to play around it and challenge in a lot of different situations. Like we talked about Pete Filling, give him a little shout out here. We've actually been doing Zoom calls with our national championship team here since quarantine started, and that's been a common occurrence of conversation. And we actually screen shared it. We were able to all watch it together to see if it would still be a penalty today, and it was definitely still a penalty today.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it wasn't even just that Filling hit. Like that Boyd elbow in the first period was something else. Like that takes real effort to get your elbow that high on a guy. We needed the PK. Like we were a tough, aggressive team, and we didn't shy away that game, which probably intimidated the other team. And yeah, we performed on the PK, or the guys who PK'd did.
I asked this before. I've said to Pete Filing, I've said, Jonesy gets all the credit. Banger gets all the credit. Scotty Pulak scores the game-winning goal in the national championship as a freshman when he wasn't even supposed to be here. I still think, Petey did all the heavy lifting on the kill. I still think we should credit Pete Fowling with the national championship victory because, seriously, when we smothered their power play the way we did between Jonesy and the guys and the D-corps, that sucked the life out of that group. It just sucked the life out of it. And all of a sudden now they're not happy playing 5-on-5, and they're back on the power play, and they're back on a 5-minute major. I think Filing's kept from behind in the national championship helped us win the national championship.
Well, and you remember right after we killed that major off, they took 2 penalties simultaneously. So we had a 5-on-3 for a full 2 minutes. We ended up not scoring on it, but it certainly, to Coach's point, kind of showed where kind of their minds they kind of got away from their discipline a little bit after the disappointment of not scoring. Just Scott, what kind of on that first goal? What do you remember about that goal scoring?
I think as much credit as Mark's great shot gets, I think my shot's equally poor. So, luckily standing in front of the net. If I recall the play, I remember Petey going up the wall and dropping it to Nick, which is a play that we've ran hundreds of times at practice. Really just standing in front there and hoping to get a stick on it. And then seeing it going through the goalie's legs and just looking for someone to hug after that.
Another good celebration.
And you got to remember too, that was our third Final Four game, our third championship game, and we hadn't scored the first two years we played in there. We got shut out both times. So Scotty's goal that game was a big weight lifted off our shoulders.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to the guys involved because we run the D cycle down the wall. Petey rolls up, Bizzer rolls down. Any other defenseman on our roster at that point probably shoots it at the net. And Nick heads up. He sees it. Scotty's on a high tip zone. He throws it through. Probably no better player on our roster at that time with hand-eye coordination than Scotty. Scotty reaches out, pulls it back in, changes the direction on a high tip. It's tough for the goaltender. It's a tough spot, right? So, all things considered, it is deserving and worthy of the national championship game-winning goal.
And then, Mark, what do you remember about your wrister?
I remember before that happened, we had actually been struggling a little bit on the power play to really get any quality chances. We had to go back and break out a couple of times, and so that was just I was rushing through the neutral zone where I typically wouldn't be on the breakout, and we were probably getting ready to go for a change to let the second unit come on, and the D-men kind of just spread. Nobody really took me, so I was like, well, that's a shot opportunity, and got lucky, put it bar down, and yeah, it was an amazing feeling. I'll tell you that. I haven't scored a goal that good since. So.
And then kind of what is everybody as the clock is ticking down? Granted, with a 2-goal lead with a couple minutes to go, a little better than one, but just kind of everybody's feeling. Everybody probably didn't breathe a sigh of relief until the horn went off, but by that point, it was pretty obvious nobody was going to be denied in those last couple minutes.
I can start that one off because I had my plan down. Started with about 45 seconds left in the game. I thought, well, if they score 2 goals on us to tie, I'm getting out of here anyway. I don't care. So I looked down with about 45 seconds, and there's at the time the games were televised on CBS Sports Network or something, so they were on live on the cable. So they had a full network TV coverage and everything like that. There was a mobile cameraman sitting on our bench, and as the time's ticking down, this guy's got his camera aimed at Tim, and I'm thinking, well, what better time for me to get some airtime? So with about 30 seconds left, we didn't have any injuries that year, as I remember, so I didn't get anything. So I'm thinking I'm getting my airtime here at the end, and sure enough, as it went down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Tim throws his arms up and turns around, and I'm right behind him. So I'm the first guy that he hugs after the game is over, and I got that's my whatever they call it, 30 seconds of fame.
Oh, that's great. I think back, I remember one of the things as a weird goalie with weird tics that we all us goalies have. One of the things I never did was look at the clock during the play, ever, unless there was a penalty that we were on power play and I had to look up to let the guys know the guy's coming out of the box. I would never look at the clock. Last 2.5, 3 minutes. That's all I did. I kept looking up. I'm like, okay, I better not jinx it now. But I was like, this is it. This is the last hurrah here for me personally at St. Norbert, and it's just like I need to know how much time I got left to shut this down. And I don't think that the puck was in our zone for quite a bit, but I don't think they saw a shot. Guys just again smothered them, and just knew we had a little bit of time to go and just to finish it off.
I'd have to say it was a little nerve-wracking. I mean, the last 2 minutes, in our minds, we had all the confidence in the world, but it never sinks in until you hear the buzzer. But I just remember, conveniently enough, I mean, it's not my position to be down low in the D zone as a winger, but as the buzzer hit, the puck was down there, and I was right next to Jonesy, and I just remember that was like so fitting, just latching onto the guy and not letting go until the whole crew was in there and we had celebrated it. You can remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember when the buzzer goes off and just the journey to get to that point with this group and this young team. I couldn't believe it. The hardships that we went through, or just losing in overtime to Middlebury and 2000. All the times we got to the national tournament and it just never happened our way. And thought we had the team to do it and go there and do it in dominating fashion. It was just, wow, it was just would never change anything. That was just the way it was meant to be. And finally kicking down the door and putting St. Norbert on the map, and this is how you got to do it. And once we kick the door down, I think guys understand what it took all season to get to that point, and the commitment, the sacrifice, and the off-ice commitment. And even adding Chase that year, I think Chase, that was his first year coming to the program, and the way he handled the boys and came in, and just the off-ice, all the off-ice commitment that we did that year, it was just amazing. And winning is unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember as that clock was ticking down, and going back to Rusty's point of he was trying to get a little FaceTime. I remember we were all on the pile, and because it was a TV game, all of a sudden, like, someone grabbed me by the back of my jersey, and it was the only other bald guy on the ice. It was the athletic director for Superior, Steve Nelson, I believe, at the time. And all of a sudden, he grabbed me, and they wanted to get a group shot with our trophy, and we were able to get that. And the first thing I did, because I had told Kyle and Banger this a couple weeks prior, that I go, you didn't get the first time to touch a Peters Cup right away, but you guys are going to be the first guys to touch that national championship trophy. And we got to hand it off to them right away. And obviously that started an onslaught of about 2 weeks of celebratory situations. And we got to use those party buses as well in Lake Placid.
Yeah, I remember you giving us that trophy, and the cameraman gets a good shot of me and Mark. It's something I'll never forget as well. But I also remember I couldn't get I was holding it with one hand, and Mark was trying to hold it too, and we're about to drop it, and we're on camera. I'm like sweating from that.
I remember after the victory too, everyone that was able to make the trip out to Lake Placid coming out on the ice, and I bet some people were out there for over an hour, family, friends. We had, some students who made the trip. So they enjoyed it along with everyone as like part of the group, which was awesome. And I think some people the guy probably wanted to turn the lights off before some people would exit the ice.
So shout out to Pooh Bear.
Yeah.
I remember in the hallway in the locker room, we posted, there was hundreds of emails from alumni and support and people that had been behind program. We posted them all on the wall, and you guys could kind of see where everybody came from. After the championship, I have a book compiled of emails from fans and supporters. It's the first national championship in the history of St. Norbert College for a team sport, and it's very significant. Scotty, they actually did flash the lights at us, unlike last time, because they were like, "We're done here." So although they went to PD early because they wanted the picture, once Plattsburgh was able to leave the ice, they gave us the ice. They treated us so well, and eventually their guys wanted to pack up and get out, and they had to flash the lights and say, "Hey guys, like seriously, it's been an hour since you won. Let's go." And then I would tell you that obviously the trip down to Zigzags as a group was fantastic. Yeah. All our friends who made the trip were there. The charter flight home was fantastic. We get to the airport in Green Bay. All the TV cameras are there, right? Larry McCarron's out, busting through to get the first interview. Kyle walks off with the trophy under his arm. Somebody's got pictures with Banger sleeping with the trophy belted into a seatbelt on the airplane. And it's all just really cool stuff. We get picked up. Paul Bukovich, one of our local Center Ice Club guys, arranges for the fire department and the police department to meet us at the airport. They give us a world-class travel into town. We go to the Abbey Bar, and all of our fans who couldn't make the trip, they're all waiting at the Abbey Bar, where you guys probably stayed for the next 2 days without going home. I'm not exactly sure. So we roll in, and I'll tell you, one of the cool things for the future, given this is the 08 championship, and now we know that we've been successful in other championships, as I'm walking up, there's a new president coming in, Tim Coghlin. And as I'm walking off the bus to go to the Abbey, I get a note handed to me. It's a handwritten note from the incoming president, Tim Coghlin, to congratulate all the guys on a national championship. So I just think that was another really cool thing, along with all the other accolades that guys picked up along the way.
No doubt. I think the coolest thing was being able to share that. Obviously, St. Norbert in the Green Bay area, and you look at Mark and myself, along with a handful of others that have decided to make Green Bay into pure home. And the faces of those guys that didn't travel out there to be at the Abbey and welcome us back, and really see the time from when it was a club sport to the first time that a varsity sport, and all the people that had hands on deck, and then to be able to bring that trophy home with our group, but for every single person that's ever donned the St. Norbert sweater or put a shovel in the ground or came to our golf outing, was such an unbelievable feeling, and something that we'll never forget either.
Well said.
Yeah, and again, certainly, that year, what I'm just kind of remember how after winning it, it was just, I don't want to say it was a sigh of relief, but it made up for all those tough losses in the NCAA tournament the 10 years previously, and where it felt great to win one, but to me, I also felt like this is going to be the start of something, because now nobody's chasing that first one anymore. The first one's out of the way, and then won it again in 11, 12, 14, and 18. So that set the tone for 5 and 11 years, which, over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of parity. A lot of different teams have won it, but St. Norbert has won the most has won 25% of the national titles in the last 20 years. And that was the one that got it all going. And that's kind of what I remember. So certainly a special season and a lot of great memories. We'll kind of go one more time around the horn for the last word on anything that we didn't cover here. Anything that's printable, at least.
Yeah, I think some of the guys already touched on it, but I think, every team is close and they become some of your best friends, but this experience bonded us together, I think, forever. And the guys touched on doing like the Zoom calls together. We're still staying connected 12 years later now, and we'll continue to do so. And I think we pick right back up where we left off, and it's pretty awesome to see.
I think for me as a non-hockey player, I appreciate everything more because I didn't ever put a skate on. I never took a shot, but I've always been treated by you guys in the top first class fashion, and I'm always grateful to be included in things like this. So it might be the only time I get to do it publicly if it's on the internet. So I appreciate everything you guys did for me and all the experiences and all the memories that have made my time at St. Norbert special.
Yeah, Dan, this has been so cool just to talk with the boys here and bring back all these memories and all the emotions back to that season and obviously going to Lake Placid and just yeah, it all kind of rushes back to you and I just can't thank you enough it just feels so good for the soul, I mean, just to talk to the guys here and all the special memories that we had and yeah, winning that championship was just amazing.
Yeah, everybody has their own specific recollections of that weekend and that season, right? Everyone's got their memories that they, think about frequently and fondly, and just getting to be able to do this brought back so many that I completely forgot about. That now, it's something you can look back on and snicker about, or just another good memory to add to the repertoire and keep there. So yeah, thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate points that have probably already been said, but I mean, being a senior and, everything that St. Norbert had provided me already for 4 years, I felt, somewhat fulfilled whether we had won or not. And just winning that was the culmination of something that, obviously I'll never forget. I feel completely attached to St. Norbert for life and to that team. The players that were, just a shout out to everybody on that team. It was such a great group of guys that, we'll never forget each other and what happened that year.
Yeah, no doubt. We all are a part of something that we're here forever and we'll always walk together. And, guys that didn't get mentioned did so many things for us. And, the biggest thing that we always carry with us is GKP, and that's something that forever and always will be with us. And we have Coach Coghlin to thank for that, for bringing us all to St. Norbert for that reason, along with AJ and the countless other assistant coaches that have been a part of the program, because it truly is a special place and profound impacts on so many people, and will continue to do so.
So PD, it's 08. We win the national championship. He's the team captain. There's something unique when you're the team captain of the first team to ever win a national championship, or a team captain on any team to win a net, because you've had a pretty big hand in what transpired. And that was certainly true. Ryan came back in 09 and was our captain again of the St. Norbert hockey program. And his career is obviously duly noted. Scotty goes on as a freshman to win again as a senior in 2011 with a very unique group of guys, and that's awesome to be able to be in two of those conversations, and a double overtime loss in 2010 to another very good Norwich team, which you were a part of. And then Marc and Kyle, there is no better way to win a national championship than to be the seniors to lead the charge. And for that, we'll ever be grateful. I know I was a senior when I last played my college game and won the national championship, and I know that there's something different about that too. So to our support staff and to all our coaches, and as PD has commented, to all the players who didn't get mentioned, nothing happens without everybody, right? So Dan, thanks again for putting this together. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, for those who don't know, the 2008 national title game, the CSTV national broadcast is on YouTube. That went up about a month ago. Tracked that down and loaded it up. So anybody who doesn't know that, spread the word that's out there. And again, this will be posted here soon. So we'll stop recording and everybody just hang on a second. But thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Let us know whether you liked Green Knights at a round table, and if everybody kind of likes it, we'll do it again sometime down the road. So thanks again, everybody.